Chapter 9, Lesson 2 on One Proportion Z-Test. Example 3. According to the CDC, 50% of high school students have never smoked a cigarette. Taya wonders whether this national result holds true in her large urban high school. For her stats class, Taya takes an SRS of 150 students from her school. She gets responses from all 150 students, and 90 of them say they have never smoked a cigarette. What should Taya conclude? The first step is to write a null and alternative hypothesis. Since we're dealing with a proportion, we're going to use the parameter p. And what Taya is doing is she's comparing the responses from her school to the national average. So we assume that her school is no different than what you would expect to see on a larger scale. It's not clear in which direction the difference may be. We don't know if she's expecting to see a larger proportion at her high school or smaller. Since you don't know, you're going to have the alternative as not equal. You also need to define what P represents. So P is equal to the true proportion of students at her high school who at least say they've never smoked a cigarette. The next step is to write down the conditions specific to one proportion Z-test. So, the first condition, based upon the information provided in the problem, is that there's an SRS as stated. The second condition, it is reasonable to assume that there are more than 1,500 students at Taya's high school. And we know that assumption is definitely reasonable because we're told that she's in a very large urban high school. Third condition. The third condition is the success-failure condition. And in this case, it's really important that you use P as opposed to P hat. We're given what we're assuming P to be in the null hypothesis, and that's therefore you need to use that in that third statement. So in this case, 150 times 0.5 is 75, which is greater than or equal to 10, and then Q is 150 times 0.5, which is also 75 and greater than or equal to 10. Next, you have to name that test. This is really critical. You will definitely lose points on the AP exam if you don't name that test. And in this case, we're dealing with a one proportion Z-test. The next step is to actually do the calculations. We can calculate P hat. That's the 90 students that responded saying that they never smoked a cigarette out of the sample size of 150. This is equivalent to 0.6. We're now going to calculate and standardize that score. And you're going to use the formula statistic, which is P hat, minus the parameter, which is P, over the standard error, which is going to be P times Q divided by N. And you can find that on page 3 of your reference sheet. We're going to substitute into the formula. So that's going to be 0.6 times minus 0.5 over the square root of 0.5 times 0.5 divided by N, which is 100. So even if you're using a calculator, you definitely need to show the substitutions into the formula. At this point, we can actually evaluate this in the calculator as long as we've shown the substitutions. So to do that, you're going to open up a calculator page and then hit Menu, Option 6 for Statistics, Option 7 for Stats Tests. So it gives you a menu of all the tests, And in this case, you're doing a 1 proportion z-test, not number 1. We rarely use number 1. We're going to use option 5. P sub 0 is the parameter value from the null hypothesis, which in this case is 0.5. The number of successes is 90 over 150. Since our null hypothesis is not equal, we're going to choose this option. Remember, if you're this is called a two-tailed test when it's not equal. If you're choosing either greater than or less than, that would be considered a one-tailed test. And just press OK. So we can see that our z-value is 2.449. It's important to draw a sketch of a normal curve at this point. And we're going to calculate the p-value by hand. So here is our assumption, our standardized mean of 0. Our z-score is positive. But it's a two-tailed test, so you're actually also finding the area to the value to the left of the negative of that parameter as well. And let's just shade that in. So the p-value is the area to the right of the standardized score and to the left of that standardized score. The reason why, again, you're calculating both those areas is because it's a two-tailed test since the null hypothesis is not equal. Okay, so next we have to show the probability. So we had a p-hat value, and we're looking to see the chance that it's not equal to that it's the absolute value of the parameter of 0.6. We standardized that score, so actually we're finding the z-score and the chance that it's not equal to the value from above. That one there. To calculate that, you're actually finding 2 times the probability. In this case, since we're given the positive value, we're going to go to the right so that the z is greater than 2.4495. Again, the reason why we have the double area is just because it's not equal in this case. So now we're going to use our normal CDF. And the low is the 2.4495. The high is 9E999 and 0, 1. So we're going to go to our handy dandy calculator, do menu, statistics, distributions, normal CDF. Let me just double check that value, 2.4495. So that's 2.4495, and that's 9E999, and hit OK. We're going to double that value, and you can see that's pretty much the same value that was actually calculated on this line over here. So it's important that I show you how to do that, and for my test I want you to do that, but on the AP exam you simply could pull it off. Just understand that a lot of multiple choice questions force you to calculate this by hand. Okay, so our p-value is 0.0143. Now I forgot something in the beginning. I should have defined my alpha, my significance level in the beginning. I didn't, so I'm just going to do it down here, but in the future it should be done up above. I could choose any value, but I'm choosing to choose 0.05. So now we're going to compare our p-value of 0.013 to our significance level of 0.05. Since it's less than, we're going to reject. So you need to have a concluding statement. Since our p-value So we're going to reject our HO. There's sufficient evidence that the proportion of students who say they never smoked a cigarette at Tyers High School, I should have added that, is different than the national value of 0.5.